What happens when one of Hollywood's most beloved and outspoken stars sits down for what should be a routine promotional interview, only to find herself caught in a verbal crossfire with daytime television's most notorious host? The Oscar-winning Jennifer Lawrence, known for her refreshing honesty and infectious personality, walked onto the set expecting to discuss her latest project, but instead found herself facing off against Behar's aggressive questioning that pushed the Hunger Games star to her absolute breaking point. What started as typical Hollywood promotional banter quickly spiraled into a fiery exchange that had audience members gasping and production staff desperately trying to regain control. The tension became so overwhelming that Lawrence did something she'd never done before in her career, something that left millions of viewers in complete shock. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, because this explosive confrontation will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about celebrity interviews. You're about to witness one of the most shocking and heartbreaking moments in daytime television history. Jennifer Lawrence, America's sweetheart whose refreshing honesty and infectious personality have made her one of Hollywood's most beloved stars, was about to face something that would shake her to her very core. The Oscar-winning actress who has always been praised for her authenticity and down-to-earth nature, who has navigated countless interviews with charm and genuine warmth, was about to encounter a host who seemed determined to tear apart everything that made her special. For over a decade, Jennifer Lawrence has been the antithesis of the typical Hollywood star. She's stumbled at award shows, called out industry sexism, and always maintained that relatable, girl-next-door quality that made millions of fans feel like they knew her personally. But on this particular morning at the View studio, Lawrence would face a different kind of challenge entirely. This wasn't going to be about her latest film, her acting process, or even her advocacy work. This was going to be a calculated assault on her character, her background, and her very right to be the person she'd always been. What you're about to see isn't just another celebrity interview gone wrong. This is a masterclass in how quickly genuine authenticity can be twisted into something ugly when someone decides that tearing down beloved figures makes for compelling television. The woman who gave us Katniss Everdeen, who has always stood up for what's right, was about to show a side of herself that even her biggest fans had never seen before. The View studio had hosted countless A-list celebrities over the years, but what was about to happen to Jennifer Lawrence would go down as one of the most unnecessarily cruel moments in television history. What started as routine promotional banter would become an emotional battlefield that left everyone questioning the very soul of celebrity journalism. Trust me, after witnessing this heartbreaking confrontation, you'll never look at daytime television the same way again. The crisp morning air filled the bustling corridors of ABC's Manhattan studios as Jennifer Lawrence bounded through the backstage area with her trademark infectious energy. The Oscar-winning actress moved with that characteristic mix of grace and endearing clumsiness that had made her America's sweetheart, greeting every crew member she encountered with genuine warmth and her signature laugh. "Good morning, everyone," she called out cheerfully, stopping to chat with a sound technician about his weekend plans. "I love your coffee mug. Is it your dog? He's adorable." Her publicist walked beside her, scrolling through last-minute notes about the interview. "Jen, they're really excited to have you. Just the usual stuff. Talk about the new film, maybe share some behind-the-scenes stories, and you know how much they love your authenticity." Lawrence nodded enthusiastically, her eyes sparkling with that genuine excitement that had made her one of Hollywood's most beloved interview subjects. "Perfect. I've got some great stories about working with the cast. There was this one day when we were filming in the rain, and..." She launched into an animated preview of the tale, her hands gesturing wildly as she spoke. The makeup artist couldn't help but smile as she applied final touches to Lawrence's already radiant complexion. "You always bring such positive energy to these shows, Jennifer. The hosts are going to eat this up. That's what I'm here for," Lawrence replied with her trademark grin. "Make people smile, talk about the work I love, and hopefully entertain some folks who are starting their day." The studio erupted in thunderous applause as Lawrence made her entrance, practically bouncing with excitement as she waved to the audience. Her genuine enthusiasm filled every corner of the space as she settled into the guest chair immediately engaging with the hosts with that natural charm that had made her a global icon. Everything felt perfectly orchestrated for another classic Jennifer Lawrence promotional appearance. But Joy Behar sat quietly, watching with an expression that suggested she had something far more sinister planned. "So, Jennifer," Whoopi began with obvious delight, "tell us about this new project. I heard you had an amazing time working with this cast." Lawrence's face absolutely lit up, her entire body language radiating that infectious enthusiasm that had made her a global phenomenon. "Oh my God, Whoopi, it was incredible. Working with these actors was like a masterclass every single day. There's this one scene where we're all supposed to be serious, but someone kept making faces behind the camera, and we just couldn't stop laughing. The audience hung on every word, clearly enchanted by her natural storytelling ability and genuine excitement. Her voice carried that perfect blend of professionalism and relatability that had made her one of Hollywood's most engaging interview subjects. And the director was so patient with us," she continued, gesturing animatedly with her hands. "I mean, there were days when I felt like I was back in school, just learning so much from everyone around me. That's what I love about this job. You never stop growing." Throughout this enthusiastic exchange, Joy Behar had remained conspicuously silent, while the other hosts leaned forward with obvious interest, nodding and smiling at Lawrence's animated descriptions. Joy sat back with a calculating expression, studying the actress with an intensity that seemed oddly predatory for such a light-hearted conversation. Finally, after several minutes of bubbly storytelling, Joy shifted forward in her chair. The movement was subtle, but it immediately changed the atmosphere in the room. Lawrence paused mid-sentence, her instincts picking up on the shift, and the other hosts grew noticeably quieter. "Jennifer," Joy said, her voice carrying a coolness that cut through the warm energy like a blade, "I have to ask you something that's been on my mind. All this success, all these opportunities that have come your way, don't you think it all happened a little too easily? I mean, some people work their entire lives and never get the chances that seem to just fall into your lap." The studio temperature seemed to drop several degrees, and Lawrence's bright smile faltered for the first time since she'd sat down. Lawrence's trademark smile wavered as she processed Joy's calculated attack, her natural bubbly energy shifting into something more cautious and defensive. She leaned back slightly in her chair, clearly caught off guard by the sudden shift from celebratory to accusatory. "Joy, I think you might be misunderstanding how much work actually goes into building a career," she replied, her voice still carrying that characteristic warmth but now with a confused edge underneath. "I've been auditioning since I was a teenager, working constantly, taking classes, studying with coaches. Nothing about this has been easy." Joy sensed she had struck a nerve and pressed forward with the predatory instinct of someone who had found their target's vulnerable spot. Her voice took on a sharper, more aggressive tone as she leaned into the attack. "But Jennifer, let's be realistic here," she continued, her words dripping with skepticism. "You grew up in a comfortable middle-class family in Kentucky. You had the resources to pursue acting. You had support systems that millions of young people don't have. Don't you think there's something privileged about your entire journey that you're not acknowledging?" The other hosts exchanged deeply uncomfortable glances, clearly sensing that the conversation was veering into dangerous personal territory. Sarah Haynes attempted a nervous laugh, as if trying to redirect the energy, but Joy's laser focus remained locked on Lawrence. Lawrence's sunny disposition began to crack under the unexpected assault, her voice taking on a defensive quality that anyone who knew her would recognize as a warning sign. "Joy, I think you're making assumptions about my background that aren't accurate. My family worked incredibly hard to support my dreams, and I've never taken any of this for granted." The studio audience could feel the tension building, the comfortable promotional atmosphere rapidly dissolving into something much more uncomfortable and personal. Joy's predatory smile suggested she was just getting started with her character assassination. Joy's eyes gleamed with something that looked disturbingly like satisfaction as she prepared to launch her most devastating attack yet. The pretense of discussing Lawrence's career had been completely abandoned, and everyone in the studio could sense that something far more personal and vicious was about to unfold. "Jennifer, let's talk about something that really bothers me," Joy said, her voice taking on a tone that made several audience members visibly uncomfortable. "You've positioned yourself as this advocate for women's rights, talking about wage gaps and equality, but don't you think there's something hypocritical about a millionaire actress lecturing working women about their struggles? What gives you the right to speak for people whose lives you couldn't possibly understand?" The question hit the studio like a physical blow. The other hosts' faces showed immediate shock, and even the camera operators seemed to freeze. This was the kind of ideological attack that crossed every professional boundary, weaponizing Lawrence's advocacy work against her in the most personal way possible. Lawrence's entire demeanor changed in an instant. The bubbly charm vanished, replaced by something much more intense and protective. Her voice, when she spoke, carried a tremor of genuine anger that suggested Joy had just crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. "Joy, you're completely misrepresenting what I've tried to do with my platform," she said, her voice steady but filled with barely contained emotion. "I've never claimed to speak for everyone. I've shared my experiences and try to use whatever influence I have to highlight important issues. That's not hypocritical. That's responsibility." But Joy had clearly decided that empathy and fairness were obstacles to compelling television. She leaned forward even more aggressively, her voice rising with what seemed like manufactured righteous indignation. "Responsibility? Jennifer, you live in a mansion, you make millions per film, you have teams of people managing your life. How is that responsible to pretend you understand what ordinary women go through? Isn't this just performative activism from someone who's completely out of touch with reality?" The studio audience sat in stunned silence, witnessing what felt less like journalism and more like a public execution. What happened next would become one of the most emotionally brutal confrontations ever captured on daytime television. Joy's attack on Lawrence's advocacy work and authenticity had pushed America's sweetheart past every boundary of professional courtesy, and the genuine passion that had made her a beloved figure was about to transform into something far more fierce and protective. "Joy, what you're doing right now isn't journalism. It's character assassination," Lawrence fired back, her voice rising with an intensity that shocked everyone in the studio. "You're taking my genuine desire to help other women and twisting it into something ugly because it fits whatever narrative you've decided to create about me." Joy's face flushed with anger as she shot up from her chair, clearly relishing the explosive confrontation she had successfully orchestrated. "Character assassination? Jennifer, I'm asking the questions that need to be asked. When privileged celebrities pretend to be champions of the working class while living in luxury, somebody has to call that out." Lawrence rose to meet her challenge, her presence filling the space with an emotional intensity that was completely unlike her usual bubbly demeanor. "Privileged? You think growing up in Kentucky with parents who worked multiple jobs to support my dreams is privileged? You think I haven't earned every single opportunity I've gotten?" The other hosts were completely paralyzed, afraid to intervene in what had become an all-out war between two strong-willed women. The studio audience watched in horrified fascination as the confrontation escalated beyond anything they had ever witnessed on morning television. "You're a millionaire actress playing at being relatable," Joy shot back, her voice cracking with what seemed like genuine anger. "You're performing authenticity while being completely disconnected from the reality that actual working women face every day." The cameras continued rolling, capturing every moment of what would become one of the most uncomfortable and emotionally charged exchanges in television history. The silence that followed Joy's brutal accusation about Lawrence being a fake Hollywood princess felt like it stretched on forever. Lawrence stood there, her chest rising and falling with emotion, her usually bright demeanor completely shattered. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a tremor that made everyone in the studio realize they were witnessing something heartbreaking. "Joy, you don't know anything about me," she said, her voice breaking slightly with genuine hurt. "You've decided who I am based on your own assumptions and bitterness. and you're using this platform to tear me down for entertainment. That's not journalism. That's just cruel. Joy realized she had pushed too far, but instead of backing down, she made one final, devastating attack. Jennifer, I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. You're just another fake Hollywood princess who's built a career on pretending to be something you're not. That was it. The moment that broke Jennifer Lawrence's heart on national television. Tears welled up in her eyes as she began removing her microphone with shaking hands. You know what, Joy? I came here to talk about a movie I'm proud of, to share something positive with people who might be having a tough day. But you've turned this into something ugly and personal. Joy watched in growing panic as she realized her attack had gone too far. Jennifer, I'm just trying to have an honest conversation about celebrity responsibility. Honest. Lawrence's voice cracked with emotion as she stood up. There's nothing honest about what you've done here. You've attacked my character, my family, my advocacy work, and my authenticity. You've made me feel small and ashamed for trying to use my platform to help other women. With tears streaming down her face but her dignity intact, Jennifer Lawrence rushed from the set, leaving Joy standing alone in the wreckage of what had once been a morning talk show, now transformed into something far more sinister. The silence that engulfed the View studio after Jennifer Lawrence's emotional exit was unlike anything the crew had ever experienced. It wasn't just quiet, it was the kind of profound, uncomfortable silence that follows a tragedy. The only sounds were the mechanical hum of cameras still rolling and the soft whispers of audience members who couldn't believe what they had just witnessed happen to America's sweetheart. Joy stood frozen in place, her face cycling through expressions of defiance, confusion, and something that might have been regret. When she finally spoke, her voice lacked its earlier aggression, replaced by something that sounded almost defensive. Well, she said, attempting to regain control of the narrative, I think that reaction shows exactly what I was talking about. Some people can't handle honest questions about their privilege and responsibility. But the other hosts' faces told a different story entirely. Whoopi looked genuinely disturbed. Sarah appeared close to tears herself, and even a usually composed Sunny seemed shaken by what they had just witnessed. The studio audience sat in stunned disbelief, many shaking their heads in obvious disapproval of what had just transpired. Several audience members could be heard whispering, "That was awful, and she didn't deserve that," their voices carrying clearly in the unnaturally quiet studio. Some were already pulling out their phones, not to record reactions, but to express their outrage at what they had witnessed. The production crew stood frozen, knowing they had just captured something that would be remembered as one of the most unnecessarily cruel moments in daytime television history. This wasn't just a bad interview. This was the moment when legitimate questioning crossed into something that felt like organized cruelty. What you just witnessed wasn't journalism. It was a public emotional assault on one of Hollywood's most genuine stars, and Jennifer Lawrence's rush from that studio wasn't just an exit. It was a statement about human dignity that will be remembered long after the cameras stopped rolling. And that's how America's sweetheart went from beloved guest to emotional victim in less than 20 minutes. All because Joy Behar decided that tearing down Jennifer Lawrence's authenticity and advocacy work was more important than basic human decency. Lawrence's rush from that studio wasn't just a walkout. It was a heartbreaking reminder that even the most genuine celebrities are human beings who don't deserve to be emotionally destroyed for entertainment. The question is, do you think Joy was justified in challenging Lawrence's privilege, or did she cross the line into cruel character assassination? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure you subscribe for more shocking moments that expose the dark reality of celebrity interviews. Until next time, remember, authenticity should be celebrated, not weaponized against the people brave enough to show it.